4,000 meters above sea level. Here, the air kills. Cold breaks bones. Most people wouldn't last a week. But one nation called this place home. They turned yaks into heating, dung into fuel, stone into fortress. They don't fight the mountains. They became the mountains. Today you'll see how they survived for centuries until now. Sherpas, architects of survival on the edge of the impossible.
Imagine that you're standing at an altitude of 4,000 meters. This isn't just a mountain. This is a boundary beyond which the atmosphere becomes so thin that every step turns into a trial. Your lungs work twice as hard, your heart beats faster, and your muscles receive only 70% of the oxygen they're used to down below. For most people, this is a zone of short-term stay. Tourists come, take photos, and quickly return down to comfortable pressure and warm air. But for one people, this is home, the only home they've known for centuries. They are the Sherpas. Their settlements are scattered across the valleys of the Khumbu region in Nepal at altitudes from 3,000 to 5,000 meters above sea level, where most plants refuse to grow, where water freezes for 8 months a year, where temperature can drop to -30 within hours. They don't just survive, they thrive. How is this possible? How can one build a civilization where biology itself says living here is impossible? Today, we'll analyze the survival engineering of the Sherpas, not as the exotica of a distant people, but as a technological system refined through centuries of evolution in the harshest conditions on the planet. Let's start with a fundamental question. What exactly makes altitude deadly? Most people think cold. And yes, cold is important. But the main enemy isn't temperature, it's pressure. Atmospheric pressure at 4,000 meters is approximately 60% of the pressure at sea level. This means each breath contains 40% fewer oxygen molecules. Your body receives less fuel, but continues to spend the same amount of energy on maintaining temperature, on movement, on thinking. This creates a constant deficit. The body tries to compensate. The heart speeds up, breathing becomes deeper, blood thickens through increased red blood cell count. But for a lowlander, this adaptation takes weeks, and full acclimatization, months. And even then, it will never be as efficient as for someone born at altitude. And here begins the first mystery of the Sherpas. Research conducted by physiologists from Cambridge University and the Nepal Academy of Sciences showed something astonishing. Mitochondria in Sherpa muscles use oxygen significantly more efficient than in lowland dwellers. Their hearts pump more blood per beat. Their lungs have greater capacity. This isn't training. This is genetic adaptation that has been forming over approximately 25,000 years since the ancestors of the Sherpas migrated from the Tibetan plateau. But even the best genetics won't save you if you freeze at night. And here we transition to engineering, to how the Sherpas built a survival system from materials available at altitudes where no trees grow. Traditional Sherpa housing isn't just a building, it's a thermal machine designed for maximum energy conservation in conditions of extreme resource scarcity. Walls are constructed from local stone, mainly granite and slate, which are abundant on Himalayan slopes. Wall thickness from 60 to 80 centimeters. It might seem like this is simply to be warmer, but in reality, specific physics is at work here. Stone has high heat capacity, the ability to accumulate heat. During the day, when the sun heats the walls, the stone slowly absorbs energy. At night, when the temperature drops, it just as slowly releases this heat back into the room. This is a natural thermal accumulator that smooths out daily temperature fluctuations. Outside, it might be -20, while inside, +5, without any central heating. Roofs in traditional buildings are flat or with minimal slope, covered with heavy slate slabs. This might seem illogical. After all, a sloped roof sheds snow better. But at altitudes above 4,000 meters, relatively little snow falls. The air is too dry. However, a flat roof of massive stones adds another layer of thermal mass and protects against the piercing wind, which at these altitudes can reach speeds of 80 kilometers per hour. Windows, if they exist at all, are small, often no larger than 30 by 30 centimeters. Every square centimeter of glass or skin-covered frame is a potential heat loss. Therefore, they're made minimal, positioned mainly on the southern wall to capture maximum sunlight in winter. In many traditional buildings, windows were closed not with glass, but with oiled paper or thin hide, materials that let light through but retained heat better than primitive glass. But the most interesting part of the architecture is what's located beneath the living quarters. In many traditional Sherpa houses, the ground floor is designated for livestock, yaks, Dzomo, and goats. This isn't just convenience, this is an ingenious engineering solution. If you remember my video about the Mongolian yurt, we already discussed yaks there and how their dung serves as fuel in the steppe. Well, in the Himalayas, yaks play an even more important role. They not only provide fuel, but literally heat houses with their bodies. One adult yak releases approximately 1,000 watts of thermal energy per day. This is the equivalent of a small electric heater. By placing the stable beneath the living quarters, Sherpas receive free heating that works round the clock. Heat from the animals rises upward, warming the floor of the living room. This is the same principle used today in underfloor heating systems, only instead of electricity, animal metabolism does the work. Now let's talk about fuel. At altitudes above 4,000 meters, trees practically don't grow. The tree line in the Himalayas runs at approximately 3,800 to 4,000 meters, depending on slope exposure. Higher? Only shrubs, mosses, and grasses. Wood is so valuable that it's used mainly for construction. Beams, door frames, furniture. Burning it for heating is like burning money. Therefore, the main fuel of the Sherpas for centuries was dried yak dung. Yes, friends, this sounds exotic to a city person, but let's look at it from an engineering perspective. Yak dung is essentially processed cellulose from high-altitude grasses and mosses that the yak couldn't fully digest. It contains a significant amount of undigested plant fibers that burn well. The fuel preparation process looks like this. During summer and autumn, women and children collect fresh dung on the pastures. It's formed into flat cakes, approximately 20 to 30 centimeters in diameter, and laid out to dry in the sun and wind. At altitude, where air humidity is very low, the dung dries within a few days, turning into light, compact fuel. One such cake burns for 30 to 45 minutes, giving stable, moderate heat. Per day, 10 to 20 kilograms of such fuel are needed for heating and cooking, depending on the outside temperature. Over a winter, one family might burn several tons. This is exactly why the size of a yak herd directly determined a family's prosperity. More animals meant more fuel, milk, meat, and wool. The center of any Sherpa dwelling is the hearth, a fireplace usually located in the center of the main room or against one of the walls. Above it, a metal or clay tripod is set up for a cauldron. Smoke exits through a small opening in the roof or simply seeps through cracks in the stone masonry. And here's an important point that might seem like a disadvantage, but is actually an advantage. The smoke that fills the room serves several functions. First, it disinfects. Combustion products have antibacterial properties. Second, it repels insects, which at these altitudes can carry diseases. Third, it covers wooden structures with a layer of soot that protects them from rotting and adds additional insulation. Yes, eyes water and breathing is difficult, but at altitude, where every infection can become fatal due to distance from medical help, these inconveniences are an acceptable price for additional protection. Now, the most important thing, food. The Sherpa diet isn't just whatever could be found. It's a carefully optimized system that provides maximum calories with minimum resources for preparation. The foundation of the diet, Tsampa. This is flour from roasted barley, which is perhaps the most perfect product for survival at altitude. Why? Because the barley is roasted before grinding, meaning Tsampa doesn't need to be cooked. It can simply be mixed with tea, water, or milk. Add fat, and you get nutritious, caloric food within minutes. This is critically important in conditions where every minute of fire burning costs precious fuel. Barley is one of the few grain crops that grows at altitudes up to 4,500 meters. Sherpas cultivate it on terraced fields cut into mountain slopes. These terraces are masterpieces of engineering thought. Stone walls retain a thin layer of soil accumulated over generations, and a complex system of channels brings water from mountain streams. But Tsampa by itself is only carbohydrates. For survival in the cold, fat is needed, a lot of fat. And here enters the second pillar of the Sherpa diet, yak butter. The yak isn't simply a cow adapted to mountains. It's a separate species, Bos grunniens, which evolved on the Tibetan plateau over millions of years. Its lungs are twice as large as those of a regular cow of the same weight. Its blood contains 30% more hemoglobin. Its thick, multi-layered coat protects against frosts down to -40. Yak milk is thicker and fattier than cow's milk. It contains approximately 6 to 7% fat, compared to 3 to 4% in regular milk. From this milk, butter is churned, a thick, yellow substance with an intense, slightly sharp taste due to long storage. And now we come to perhaps the most famous element of Sherpa cuisine, salted butter tea, called pocha or simply butter tea. This isn't a drink in the usual sense. It's liquid food, a caloric balm that warms from within and provides energy for hours of hard work. The recipe is simple but ingenious. Strongly brewed black tea, which was historically brought from Tibet and China via caravan routes, yak butter, and salt. All of this is churned together to a uniform, slightly foamy consistency. The taste for an unprepared person, shocking. Salty, fatty, with a pronounced animal aftertaste. But this isn't about taste. This is about survival. One bowl of such tea contains from 150 to 200 calories. Sherpas can drink from 10 to 20 bowls a day, especially during heavy physical labor. That's from 1.5 to 4,000 additional calories, exactly what the body needs when constantly fighting cold and oxygen deprivation. The salt in the tea isn't just for taste. At altitude, the body loses more salt through accelerated breathing and sweating during physical activity. Hyponatremia, dangerously low blood sodium levels, is a real threat for those working at altitude. Salted tea solves this problem elegantly and deliciously. Now, let's talk about water. It might seem that in mountains, surrounded by glaciers and snows, water shouldn't be a problem. But this is an illusion. In winter, all sources freeze. Streams that cheerfully babble in summer turn into silent ribbons of ice. To get water, one must melt snow or ice, and this means spending fuel, the same precious fuel needed for heating and cooking. Therefore, in traditional Sherpa settlements, a strict water economy developed. Water is used primarily for drinking and cooking. Everything else is secondary. Daily washing in our usual sense is a luxury most couldn't afford. Instead, careful wiping with hot water of hands and face, especially before meals. This might seem unhygienic by modern standards, but the paradox is that at altitude, the risk of many infections is lower than in the lowlands. Most pathogenic bacteria and viruses reproduce poorly in the cold and thin air, and intense ultraviolet radiation at these altitudes has an additional disinfecting effect. And boiling water for tea, a mandatory part of daily life, destroys any pathogens. The waste management system in traditional settlements was simple but effective. Toilets, usually small stone or wooden structures, were placed at a considerable distance from dwellings and water sources. Organic waste was covered with ash or earth. In the cold, dry climate, decomposition occurs slowly, which reduces the risk of infection spread. And in spring, when the snow melts, natural processes complete the cycle. Now, let's talk about the yak, the animal without which Sherpa life at these altitudes would simply be impossible. The yak isn't just livestock, it's a universal survival tool, evolutionarily adapted to extreme conditions. Its thick coat consists of 3 layers, a short undercoat, long guard hairs, and an even longer skirt on the belly and sides that can reach the ground. This combination provides insulation that allows the yak to feel comfortable at temperatures down to -40. The yak's hooves are wide and rounded, with hard edges and a soft center. This is an ideal construction for moving on steep, rocky slopes and snow. A yak can carry loads up to 100 kilograms and cross passes at altitudes over 5,000 meters, where even an empty-handed person has difficulty breathing. Sherpas use every part of this animal. Milk goes to butter, cheese, and yogurt. Meat for food, which is stored dried or naturally frozen. Wool for warm clothing, blankets, and ropes. Hide for footwear, bags, and straps. Bones for tools and ornaments. Dung for fuel. Even blood was used for preparing special dishes during holidays. But there's one problem. Purebred yaks give relatively little milk. Therefore, Sherpas for centuries have been crossing yaks with lowland cows, obtaining hybrids, Zo males and Dzomo females. Dzomo give more milk than pure yaks while retaining the ability to live at significant altitudes. This is an example of selection that was conducted for generations long before science described the principles of genetics. A day in a traditional Sherpa settlement begins long before dawn. The first task, light the fire. This is a duty that usually falls on the shoulders of the elder woman or daughter-in-law. In the darkness, by touch, she finds the prepared fuel, tinder, flint. A few strikes, and the first sparks fall on dry moss. A thin stream of smoke, the first warmth, the first light of day. While the fire builds, other family members wake up. In traditional houses, the entire family sleeps in one room. This is more efficient for heat conservation. Children, wrapped in woolen blankets, still stir on mattresses stuffed with yak wool. Men begin preparing for the day's tasks. Breakfast is quick and caloric. Tsampa mixed with butter tea. Perhaps a piece of dried cheese, chirpy, hard as stone, which needs to be sucked on for a long time. Several bowls of hot tea to warm the body before going out into the frost. The entire procedure takes no more than half an hour. After breakfast, work. Men and older boys lead the herd to the pastures. This can mean climbing several hundred meters of a steep slope where among stones and snow hide islands of dry grass. Constant attention is needed here. Animals can get lost, fall into a gorge, become victims of a snow avalanche, or sudden weather change. Weather in the mountains changes with frightening speed. A clear morning can turn into a snowstorm within an hour. Experienced herders know how to read the smallest signs, the shape of clouds over the peaks, wind direction, animal behavior. If a yak starts restlessly sniffing the air and moving toward lower ground, this is a signal that shelter must be found immediately. In the settlement remain women, children, and elders. Their work is no less hard. Milking Dzomo is a daily ritual that requires skill and patience. The milk must be processed, part into butter, which is churned in wooden churns for hours, part into cheese, which will dry in the sun and wind for weeks. Women also engage in spinning wool. This can be done in parallel with other tasks, sitting by the fire, watching children, even during conversation. Fingers automatically twist the fibers, turning raw yak wool into strong thread. From this thread, socks, mittens, sweaters are then knitted, things without which survival at altitude is impossible. Repairing clothing and equipment is another constant duty. In the harsh mountain climate, things wear out quickly. A torn seam on a boot can mean frostbite on the foot during a pass crossing. A broken buckle on yak harness, loss of valuable cargo in a gorge. Therefore, every evening is devoted to careful inspection and repair. Every stitch, every knot must be flawless. Toward evening, men return from the pastures. If the day was successful, the herd returned complete, the animals ate their fill, no one was harmed. This isn't always the case. Avalanches, falls from cliffs, snow leopard attacks, all these are real threats that take animals every year. Every loss is a blow to the family's well-being. Dinner is the main meal. On the fire, a thick soup or stew of meat, potatoes, possibly with vegetables if the season allows, is prepared. The meat might be fresh if an animal was recently slaughtered, or dried, prepared back in autumn. Dried yak meat, something like jerky, can keep for months without refrigeration thanks to the dry mountain air. After dinner comes a special time, when dishes are washed, children put to bed, and the fire quietly smolders in the hearth. The elders sit by the warmth and begin to tell stories. This isn't just entertainment, this is knowledge transfer, an oral university where every lesson can save a life. Parents tell about dangerous routes through passes, about places where avalanches most often occur, about signs of an approaching storm. Grandmothers share healing secrets, which herbs help with altitude sickness, how to treat a wound to avoid infection, how to ease the pain of frostbite. This is knowledge accumulated over generations, not written in any book, but passed from mouth to mouth for centuries. Spirituality permeates every aspect of Sherpa life. Mountains aren't just geography, they are homes of deities. Every peak has its name and its guardian spirit. Everest, which the Sherpas call Chomolungma, goddess mother of the world, is a sacred place where the goddess Myo Langsangma resides. Before any serious ascent, Sherpas conduct a puja ceremony, asking permission from the mountains and blessing for a safe journey. This might seem like superstition to a modern person, but in reality, this spiritual tradition has deep practical meaning. It cultivates respect for the mountains, caution, humility. One who believes that the mountain can punish for arrogance will be more attentive, more careful, less prone to risky decisions. And in the mountains, arrogance kills. Now let's talk about what happens when something goes wrong, because in the mountains, something always goes wrong. Imagine midwinter, January, temperature at night drops to -35. For several consecutive days, it snowed, and fuel supplies in the house are running out earlier than expected. The dung storage outside is buried under a meter of snow. To reach it, a path must be dug. Heavy physical work in the frost and thin air. What does the family do? They don't panic. They act methodically, using knowledge passed down through generations. First, they reduce heat expenditure. They cover windows and door cracks with additional blankets. They move closer together near the hearth, perhaps invite neighbors. More people means more body heat. Then, they organize the work. Men take turns going out into the frost to dig a path to the storage. Shifts are short, 15 to 20 minutes, no more, to avoid hypothermia. Between shifts, hot tea, rest by the fire. This is a marathon, not a sprint. And most importantly, they know this is temporary, that the snowstorm will end, that neighbors will help, that spring will come. This confidence, based on the experience of many generations, gives strength to endure the hardest trials. Or another situation. A child is sick. Fever, cough, labored breathing. To the nearest hospital, several days' journey through passes. What to do? In traditional communities, there were always healers, people who knew the medicinal properties of local plants. High-altitude herbs that grow at the edge of the snowline often have unique properties. Rhodiola rosea, an adaptogen that helps the body cope with stress and oxygen deprivation. Ephedra, a natural bronchodilator that eases breathing. Various species of wormwood, antiseptics, and fever reducers. This knowledge is the result of thousands of years of observation and experimentation. Not all traditional medicines are effective from the perspective of modern medicine, but some undoubtedly work. It's no coincidence that pharmaceutical companies to this day study plants from the Himalayas in search of new medicinal compounds. Spring in the mountains isn't just nature awakening, it's the season of the hardest labor. Snow melts, revealing fields that must be worked. The ground, frozen through winter, is hard as stone. It must be dug, loosened, prepared for sowing. Everything by hand, without machines, which at these altitudes simply don't work due to lack of oxygen for engines. Terraces, damaged by winter slides and meltwater, must be repaired. Stone walls, rebuilt. Irrigation channels, cleaned, and water directed to the fields. This is collective work. Neighbors help each other, understanding that the survival of the entire community depends on everyone. Sowing barley and potatoes occurs in the short interval between the last spring frosts and the beginning of monsoon rains. The window of opportunity, only a few weeks. If you're late, the harvest won't have time to ripen before the first autumn cold. If you rush, young sprouts will die from frost. Summer is the easiest time of year. Pastures turn green, animals quickly gain weight, there's plenty of milk. But even in summer, work doesn't stop. Fuel must be stockpiled for winter, collecting dung, drying it, storing it in sheds. Houses must be repaired, replacing damaged stones, renewing roofs. Food supplies must be prepared, drying meat and cheese, gathering wild herbs and berries. Autumn is the time of harvest and final preparations for winter. Barley is cut with sickles, dried in the sun, threshed, winnowed. Potatoes are dug up, sorted, stored in cellars where they'll stay frozen but won't spoil. Animals that can't be fed through winter are slaughtered, and the meat is dried or frozen. And then winter comes. The cycle closes. Again, short days, long nights, fighting the cold, waiting for spring. Year after year, generation after generation. Looking at this life from the height of our comfortable world, with central heating, supermarkets, and hospitals on every corner, it's easy to feel pity or even condescension. Poor people, we think. who are forced to work so hard just to survive. But this is a false perspective. The Sherpas don't survive. They live a full, meaningful life where every action matters, where every community member is important, where the connection with nature isn't an abstraction, but a daily reality. Their survival system isn't primitiveness due to backwardness. It's a perfect adaptation, refined through centuries of evolution. Every element, from thick stone walls to salted butter tea, from the multifunctionality of the yak to knowledge transfer by the fireside, is part of a single, ingenious strategy. They don't fight the mountains. They became part of the mountains. Their success isn't a victory over nature, but an agreement with it. An agreement whose terms are harsh but fair. Respect the mountain, and it will let you live. Disregard it, and it will take everything. Today, Sherpa life is changing. Tourism and mountaineering brought money, hospitals, schools, internet. Youth leave for cities. Traditional crafts are forgotten. Plastic roofs replace slate slabs. This is the inevitable price of progress. But those who remain in the mountains, who continue to live by the laws established by their ancestors, preserve something priceless. They preserve knowledge of how a person can exist in harmony with the harshest environment. Knowledge that may become critically important if our civilization with its technologies and energy dependence ever faces serious challenges. When you now hear the word Sherpas, don't think only of porters on Everest. Think of a people who turned deadly altitude into home, of survival engineers who, without concrete, glass, and electricity, created a civilization where most of us wouldn't last a week. Think of stone walls that accumulate solar heat, of butter tea that gives strength for an hour of hard labor, of yaks that provide food, clothing, fuel, and transportation, of knowledge passed by the fireside from grandfather to grandchild. And feel what's most important. Survival at the edge of possibility isn't about heroic bursts. It's about daily precision. It's about a system where every element supports another. It's about respect for the environment and the ability to negotiate with it on its terms. The Sherpas didn't conquer the Himalayas. They became the Himalayas. And in this is their true victory. If you enjoyed this engineering breakdown, give it a like and subscribe to the channel. And in the comments write what impressed you most about the Sherpa survival system. Perhaps you've seen something similar in other cultures? Thank you for watching.